indicated, my name is Brown. I go by LB. And today we have, I'm very excited about this because Dr. Kortney Peagram is someone we've become fast friends. And she is a visiting professor here at Elmhurst University. And just amazing, right? Some of the things that she's already doing, I've had the opportunity to sit in on her class. And so I wanted you all to have the opportunity to witness her greatness and get a sense of our faculty. Right now, she is gracing us with her presence all the way from Sweden. She's presenting at a conference there, and so we're so fortunate to have her. And today we'll be talking about emotional intelligence, which I can assure you she is an expert in this field. And Dr. Peagram, if you'd like to share just a little bit more about yourself, and then we can kind of jump into the questions that we have and go from there.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks for the warm welcome. I love it. That makes me feel really special. So I appreciate you. So my name is Dr. Kortney Peagram. I'm a business psychologist. So I have a background where I did a lot of leadership training. For 10 years, I ran a company on anti-bullying, anti-violence, and we were over, I think at the end when we closed, we were over 300 schools. So I managed a staff of 12, and we did assemblies, social emotional learning, which is basically emotional intelligence. And then I also did executive coaching and leadership development. So my company was in two different sectors, corporate and then schools. Have a really extensive background when it comes to harassment, sexual harassment. And the key is emotional intelligence, right? So if you can develop empathy and manage your emotions, you have a better response to your behaviors and your actions. So that's like my passion. I'm here presenting actually on a topic that is a little different than what I used to do, but falls in line. So I'm presenting on sexting and teenagers and how that impacts their self-esteem, self-worth, and their social currency. So we are collecting the data in the fall, and so we're presenting our initial findings right now. So that's a little bit about me, and that's why I'm in Sweden for the World Anti-Bullying Conference.
Thank you so much. So it's interesting because I see Chad McNeil, who is one of my former students, and I think he can actually, if he recalls this, attest to the idea and notion of how important I think emotional intelligence is. We talked about it, I actually talk about it in all of my classes because I think it's important for the added element to getting your MBA and learning all of the core classes that will help you be a better business person. Absolutely important, right? But if you can do all those things, but you cannot exercise emotional intelligence, then you could hit a stone wall. And so we don't want you to do that. And so let's start with Dr. Peagram. If you can tell us, how would you define what emotional intelligence is?
So emotional intelligence is the ability to read, monitor, manage, right, and process emotions so that you can make effective decisions. You can communicate properly, you can able to process information and strategically plan. So emotional intelligence is using your emotions as power to further advance conversations, decisions, behaviors.
Absolutely. And so as you talk about that, what's the level of importance though you would say around that? Because I mentioned it a little bit, but say a little bit more about the importance of exercising emotional intelligence.
Well, now more than ever, it's critical. With coming back from COVID, we're still in the reintegration phase. We're learning to work again together in hybrid models, face-to-face. And it's really important to be able to understand what people are saying, how they're saying it, what they mean behind it, and also being able to read emotions on people. So that if you're a leader and you can't understand that your employees are anxious, isolated, are stressed, and you miss that mark and you push more work on them, you're going to lose your employees. And we all know how the cost of turnover. So emotional intelligence is critical when it comes to leadership. And especially in the MBA program, you can be financially literate. You can be able to, understand the economy and, even supply chain. But if you can't able to read emotions and manage people and work in groups, then like LB, you said, you're going to stall in your career. So I think that's why it's really important more than ever. It's not only to move into your career, but it's to create like healthy workplaces to eliminate the toxicity that we've had.
Wow, you touched on a lot of different things that I would love to hit, but we only have a short period of time. But a couple of things is that one is that when you think about, you just said a little bit about coming back from COVID, and can you share with us a little bit more about the idea of how important emotional intelligence is to increase your brand, where you're not face to face and having kind of those water cooler conversations anymore. How does emotional intelligence play into that?
So I was running a program of team coaching that I did. And it's an interesting model. So they're going to do hybrid, and there's actually one person that's staying remote because they moved away. So one of the strategies is be able to have these difficult conversations of things are no longer the same, but creating psychological safety in those discussions is critical, because to be able to come to a solution, to come to a strategy, to understand where people are coming from, we need to have a psychological safe place. And to do that, you have to be able to have social contracts, expectations, and really open that space to have people share. And so if you have high levels of emotional intelligence, you can facilitate that discussion and have like effective outcomes. Because without these difficult conversations, it's really hard to create this. I don't like to use the new world or the new way, but everything is different. It will never be like it used to be. And I think
Mhm.
that's where the point that we have to have these conversations.
Yeah, thank you. So when you talk about the new, you don't want to say necessarily the new, but what we do know is this change is constant, right?
Mhm.
And so the emotional intelligence piece really are about managing self and managing others, and how important that becomes. And really, when you think about it, the investment around emotional intelligence means providing yourself a competitive advantage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree that it puts it, especially in this program, puts you at a competitive advantage because you're able to make decisions and be like, okay, see, financially, this is what I want you to do. And here's the why on how this will help your employees, help your brand, help your organization. So it's tying not only to the return on the investment, but also the people aspect of it. And that's what leaders want. They want to hire people that understand that it's not just about the numbers, the people need to be included in these decisions.
Sure, sure. And what are some ways that we can improve our emotional intelligence?
So in my classes, and I think Brianna and Douglas are in some of my classes, it's about experiencing um, different settings, team dynamics. It's about learning how to increase your communication by taking risks, by trying new things, by putting yourselves into different roles. So in my classes, we did role plays, we did what we call activities, where we go through a simulation. And that really helps with emotional intelligence. You're like, oh, wow, this is how I reacted in this situation. Well, most of the time, that's how you'd react at work. So to develop emotional intelligence is about practice. It's about learning to read emotions. It's about understanding that a person can feel more than sad, mad, and happy, right? And it's understanding that emotions have weight and using them as data set to better communicate and then see what we can do. So what is the outcome? So when I teach my classes, I talk about how emotions have a certain amount of weight. And when you identify that weight, and you can explore that data and see like, what does this emotion look like, feel like, and sound like? It's really helpful for my more technical or analytical students.
I bet that makes a lot of sense. So there's two books that I think you and I talked about: the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry, and then the other one is What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith.
Mhm.
And in that one, it talks about from executive coaching. So I'd like to say a little bit more about that. But people think about that they've been wildly successful and they continue to use those same tools. What's the disadvantage of using the same tools in every single scenario that a lot of people, a lot of leaders will fall into?
Yeah. Well, it's off the shelf, right? So, and we're human. We're not off the shelf.
Right.
Every employee, every person you work in a team is unique. So you have to think about it as like building a puzzle. So you have these tools you can use, and sometimes you can put a few tools together, and this might work, right? And then sometimes you have to just use one piece of the puzzle because that's what's going to work. So it's expanding your mind to understanding that there's different strategies, resources, and tools, and putting them together and just trying. And then also being self-aware. I think, emotional intelligence, if you are not self-aware, there's no way you're going to develop it. So it's understanding, what strengths do I bring to the table? What are my weaknesses? What are my threats? And what are my opportunities? So do a SWOT on yourself and figure out who you are before you go try and help everyone else.
Well, I'm a fan of the SWOT, so I peaked on that. So I don't know if you remember this, but you and I, so for the group, Dr. Peagram is 2 doors down from me. So we are constantly in one another's office and bouncing ideas, thoughts, and concepts around each other. And she talked a little bit about, remember blind spots, and how does the emotional intelligence help? What are blind spots, and how do you help mitigate blind spots with emotional intelligence?
Right. So I like to go back to the model of the Johari window to explain the blind spots. So if you think about a quadrant, right? So there's things that, everyone here knows about me and LB in this moment, right? It's known to everyone. And there's things that are just known to me and LB. There's things that are just known to me. There's things that just LB knows of me. And then there's what we call that blind spot, right? So, which is not known to it's not known to me, but then it's known to LB, if that makes sense, right? So with the quadrants, so if he knows something and he's coaching me or he's going to give me feedback and I have no idea what's about to come, I will not be receptive, right? I will not take the direction, the feedback. So we don't want to hit people in their blind spot. We want to hit them where, they're aware of what's going on or they know that, but a blind spot is something that you don't know. So a good example could be if someone is not receptive to feedback, right? Or they could be abrasive in their communication. And I come in and I say, Sally, when you say this, it's really abrasive and it comes across as harsh. That could be a trigger and the person will not hear anything else you're saying because they're going to go into emotional attack, defensiveness, resistance, right? So you want to make sure that you have the ability to identify when people have those blind spots, to not go there, but more create opportunities for them to discover their blind spots, right? So that's where the coaching comes into play. And I can send the model as a resource to the Johari window to better understand the quadrant because I love it. And I didn't do it justice because I was just bleh. But there's a lot of good points to the Johari window, but the blind spot is something critical that we need to pay attention to and know that when someone is getting really defensive and resistant, you probably hit the blind spot. And you want to kind of back off and take the time to I like to say pivot so that you can have a constructive conversation versus deconstructive where you get nothing out of it.
Mm-hmm. Great. And you talked a little bit about, you said you used the term coaching a couple of different times, and I don't know that we're supposed to greenlight this, but I'll ask for permission later. Can you say a little bit about your innovation idea that has been supported? So we have an innovation competition that's happening here at Elmhurst University. There are a number of ideas, concepts. I've heard a lot of them, but again, patting my own self on the back because I picked Dr. Peagram. She has one, and I wanted to share a little bit more about it from the executive coaching space. So can you do that?
Yes. So this is my biggest dream. It's been on my vision board for years. So I designed this. It's a year program, right? Coaching, let's call it a certificate for now. Just we'll use that word, right? It's a year program where MBA students would go through it and they'd be able to understand how they are currently using these classes to then coach others. So on understanding how to manage, develop, grow, set goals. And what the program does, it's all about emotional intelligence. It's understanding who you are as an individual and then focusing on your strengths to develop your coaching style. Just like we talked about, a lot of these programs, the coaching certificates, are off the shelf. We are customizing this program to you. So if you're strong in analytics, we're going to train you on your strengths of how to be a coach and using your analytics. If you are a great communicator, we're going to train you on how you use your communication skills to be a strong coach. And what it does is it gives you the ability to be an executive coach, to train leaders. And now more than ever, there's a huge demand. People are going back to the workplace. They're unmotivated, they're underperforming, and leaders don't know how to fix it. So they need to be coached. They need to get the tools. So this is going to be bigger than ever. And the cool thing about the program is the first part of the program, you learn about yourself and you coach a peer, right? Then the second part of the program is we take people from the community and you actually coach a leader from start to finish, and you're evaluated. All your sessions are recorded. You get constant feedback. And then you not only like read books and articles, but you're applying this model. And what I love about this is you can try, even people that have gone through my program because I ran a whole simulation to make sure it worked with pre and post data, who are coaches, learn from this program because it's a specific set of skills. It's strength-based coaching. So I'm focusing on who you are as an individual and developing you as a coach versus just saying, just try this. Like we talked about the models, right? So like you can't always use the same models. So it's a customized individual plan so that you can be the best executive coach that you could be because it's about you. And then the outcome is pretty cool because you not only learn how to coach, but you also build that relationship with someone, and you have that to like when you finish the MBA program, you have that to put on your resume, right? So I'm very passionate about the coaching program, and it's very unique in the simulation, the delivery, and the ability to apply immediately into action. And we also use assessments that are based on a competency model so that it's all data. So at the end of the day, it's not just about using emotional intelligence, it's also understanding how it impacts. So there's my spiel.
Awesome. And it's important because for me is that when I'll share a little bit of background about me. For those of you that don't know, I actually am an alum of the MBA program, a proud Blue Jay flag waving alum of this program. It was an amazing one when I came through it. I've taught for the last 6 years as an adjunct. And one of the things, Kelly Cunningham, for those of you may or may not call it, Kelly is the previous director of the program. And Kelly can tell you, I used to bug him about this element, about the emotional intelligence piece, so much so that after I completed the MBA program, I went on to get certification in executive coaching, certification in diversity coaching that also had an executive coaching element as well, because I believe that is such an important element for leadership. And it is, I think, for our program, once we're able to put this in place, is a differentiator that we add competitive advantage for our students, right? To be able to get all of the fundamental core courses, but then be able to maximize what you have as your talents, right? And what excited me about, and Kortney and I, Dr. Peagram and I, did not know each other in this way. And as we had the conversation, it was just exciting for the both of us to say, hey, this is the direction in which we'll be able to go. These are some of the things that we're doing in the program that great program. We want to take it to the next level, right? The way that I want to honor Kelly, who was my mentor, is we want to take the program to the next level. Great program, but you always want to take your program to the next level. We do that by our faculty, the amazing faculty, as you can see here, our students, right? And what we're able to do for our students, and then what you all are able as graduates to do for the program. And that is to succeed, because that's the best marketing you can possibly have, is when your students come out the program, you know, what they're doing, how they're moving in the world. And that's what we like to be able to do. Dr. Peagram, I know that you are on a time limit because you are out there doing amazing things at the conference. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with us before you depart?
Yes, and we do actually have a question that came in the chat specifically for Dr.
Awesome.
Peagram. So I do want to make sure we get to that really quick. And I know we touched on this a bit, but do you have like any, I guess, quick and dirty little tidbits for people who may not be in a management position right now, but as an individual contributor trying to be a leader, or maybe even managing up a little bit for these skills to be, you know, considered in the workforce, or to kind of learn these things?
Great question.
So I love that question. I think that when we're moving up into a leadership position, it's about positioning ourselves, right? So it's about networking, meeting the right people, opening and saying yes to opportunities that can maybe open future doors. So how do you do that? You need to have a strategic plan for yourself, right? So what is my direction? Where do I want to end up? And don't do 10, 15 years, because like everything changes. So just do a 3 to 5 year plan, right? So upon graduation, where do I want to be? And then you backtrack and you go back, okay, so who do I need to meet? And what people would I like to interview that have those jobs so that I can see what they have done? So informational interviewing is critical. Also, when it comes to like understanding, is once I meet those people, how do I develop those relationships? now more than ever, it's really important to build relationships, and people are eager. We've been isolated. We've lost a lot of contacts. People are eager to meet. Then what type of person and place do I need as a mentor? I believe that everyone needs a mentor and a coach. And also a therapist could be really helpful too. But for this purpose, like, you need a mentor and you need a coach. So who would you want to have, like, that would take you under their wing and mentor you? And when there's a position open, then they're your ambassador. So they rep for you. They say, like, this person is great, Sam has all these skills. Like, I think he's perfect for going up and moving up into the director level. So, and then also what's important is learning to ask questions in a way that shows curiosity, and you need to remove judgment. So often I managed a team of 12, and the minute someone had a question with the but, like, so why do you do this? And then, you really think it's effective? And then I would explain about the big but. I'm like, no. So learning how to communicate with when you manage up is critical. So taking feedback. Okay, so learning how to ask questions and meeting the right people is critical. So when you take feedback, always say yes, thank you, versus trying to resist it. Because when we resist feedback, and it shows that we're not really ready to move into a leadership position. Because as leaders, you get feedback all the time, right? I was in an HR role, and oh my, did I ever get feedback? And it was never good. So it's always important to remember, how do we accept feedback and how do we utilize it? I said this in one of the things that I did, the series of speakers. Is it a golden nugget or a dumpster dive? So when someone's giving you feedback, what can I take back as my golden nugget to learn and improve my leadership? And then everything else that's not constructive and not going to help me, it's a dumpster dive. That's on you. I don't need to own that. This is your criticism, and that's not feedback. So that mindset can really help you frame how you're taking the information, using the data to improve and self-develop. So those are some tips.
And are you kind of saying that also being able to communicate and maybe take feedback in this way is a way of illustrating your own emotional intelligence and showing that you have that skill set? Would you say that that's a way to share that skill?
Right. So that would be, how do you show emotional intelligence? Is how do you accept the feedback?
Cool.
And it never feels good. I mean, honestly, still to this day, when someone gives me feedback, I really have to take it sounds silly, but take a deep breath, because you're like, part of this could be constructive, but also it can be hurtful. People can hurt your feelings. Like, we all have feelings. That's emotional intelligence. And you can get angry, right? So it's really about, that's what's emotional literacy. It's reading the emotion, and emotional management is being like, I'm getting angry, so I need to take a deep breath, right? I need to start calming myself so I don't react negatively, or I don't say something that I'm going to regret, because some things you can't take back and they could really impact your career.
Yeah, I would just add in the part to saying things that you might regret. It's just a little thing that I've learned over the years. Never put something derogatory in an email, because what will happen, or a text, because people have the ability to reread it. And so it insults and hurts over and over and over. If you have to do anything in the to section, type in to yourself. If you absolutely have to do it, right, type it and then send it. Now, here's my recommendation. I don't put to anybody. I type it out, right, get it off my chest, and then erase it, right? But Dr. Peagram is exactly right. That is the big one. The other thing, something that she said that very few practitioners I hear say about the whole idea of mentorship is that, and it's actually a pretty prevailing thought, that you have to have a mentor, then a sponsor. What she was just saying is cultivating the mentor into the sponsor. It makes so much more sense. It's organic in that way. You have someone that actually knows who you are, knows your talents, and is willing to be the person when you're not in the room to say, hey, I think Kortney would be amazing for this opportunity. Why? Because I've had the experience with her to be able to speak on her behalf. And so that's why it makes more sense to have this kind of a transitional relationship from mentor to an advocate. And so I think that's also a brilliant call out. So thank you for sharing that as well. So any other questions before we have to let Dr. Peagram go? All right.
Maybe, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, maybe More of a just a general like content question. But if you have any recommendations, just in any articles or just books related to emotional intelligence and like navigating organizational change, that's something that I think is extremely relative to what I'm doing right now in my career, but in particular, just day in and day out with my job. Just trying to transition more from a startup to being full-fledged. And I think that's something that I'm coming across myself that I think I could use a refresher on, but also recognizing it in others that it's lacking, and just trying to just go through a change management process and just disseminate that information down and getting people on the same page. So, I mean, neither here nor there. I know we're almost at time, but if any articles or books that you would recommend, would be super happy to check those out.
So LB has a ton of books. Great recommendation. Like every time he speaks, it's like I just write everything down. But quickly, also I'll send it to Sarah. So I have, because I was a consultant for so many years and I ran a lot of leadership training. So what I'll do is I'll send you my resources, like best practices to communicate, best practices, like, because it's all about communication at that point when you're dealing with change and how it trickles down. So I hope that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Peagram. We really appreciate your time. Enjoy your time in Sweden. Make us proud, as I'm sure you will. And we look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was amazing. Like,
Thank
this
you.
was the best seminar of the day.
Thanks, Dr.
Okay,
Peagram.
well, thank you. Okay, take care. Okay, bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Anyone?
So I was going to share that, oh, he already jumped off. I'll send him an email, but Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is really a really great text for, it doesn't do like the deep dive, right, per se, but it does do an assessment, and it gives you, I think, enough ground, what is that term, traction, to be able to have the conversation around, and you'll have other resources. And if you are in the MBA program, you go find Dr. Peagram. So that's my pitch
me.
for our program.
Thanks. Okay, well,
All
I'll
right.
jump off. Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
take care. Bye.
All right. Mr. McNeil, how are you, sir?
Ron, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.